Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. One of the most common questions that I get asked by customers is how to add flavor to food without having to add fat like oils and butter, and to really take off a lot of the fat from meats when cooking meat. So I wanted to share with you the few things that I do to add flavors to food without having to add fat. And I'm going to do 2 or 3 videos for this because I wanted to talk to you in details about each of the things that I do. So for today, I wanted to talk about herbs. So I wrote down all the herbs that I use because I didn't want to forget the herbs and how I use it. So I wrote everything down. And the way I use herb is I like to use some for cold foods and some others for hot food because it really depends on the herb. So let's see. So the herbs that I use are mainly coriander, chives, dill, parsley, flat leaf parsley, basil, mint, rosemary, and sage. And these are the most common ones in the UK that you can easily find in supermarkets, because here unfortunately it's not very easy to find a lot of variety of herbs in supermarkets or shops. So these are the ones that are easily found in supermarkets, so the ones that I use a lot for my cooking. And like I said, some of them I like to use for cold foods and some for hot foods. So for example, one of my favorite herbs is coriander, or cilantro as it's called in the US and in Latin America. And I like to use it a lot for cold food, whether it's a salad or cold meats. Like a year ago I did a pulled chicken and avocado filling, and I added coriander to that recipe. And coriander is, I would say, is the main herb used in Venezuelan cooking, so I use it quite a lot. The other herbs that I use are chives, and chives to me, it has like a very subtle onion flavor. So I use that a lot in recipes that I use shallots or onions, or somewhere where I don't use onions or shallots at all, but I want to just give it slightly a hint of onioness, if you know what I mean. Then I've got dill. Dill is one of my favorite herbs. Unfortunately, it has been stuck used only for potato salad or salmon or smoked salmon thing. And dill is a herb that you can use on anything and all the time because it really gives like a sourness, tangy flavor to any cold dish that you're doing. And I also use it for hot food, and in a minute I'll talk about that. So dill it's a herb that I use quite a lot, and I always match it with other herbs to give more like a rounded flavor to anything that I'm doing, whether it's a salad or it's a cold meat dish. So dill, it's a really great herb to use in small quantities or in large quantities depending on what sort of vibe or flavor you want to give to your dish. The other herb is basil. Basil is one of the, I would say, the main herbs in Italian cooking, and over there is really used for 2 things: for tomato salads and making pesto. But I think basil, it's a herb that also can be used in leaf salads, and it can be used in in cold dishes as well. I use it a lot in leaf salads, and I get feedback of people saying, oh, you know, what did you use? What herb was it? Because they can't seem to sort of put together basil and a leaf salad. It seems to me that basil leaf, it's done only with tomatoes, and that's kind of it. And I don't think that at all. I think basil is a great leaf to add freshness to a cold dish, especially if you match it with other herbs. The other herb that I like to use is mint. And mint, I think it has to be used with caution, because if you use too much mint in a dish, it really overpowers everything else. And I find that mint on a high used, it can taste very soapy, the things that you do. So for example, if I'm doing a salad, I could use 1 to 2 leaves of mint if it's a salad for 4 or 5 people. I just want to have a background of the mint, but I don't want to be the main flavor of the dish that I'm using. So those are for the cold foods. And for hot foods, I like to use rosemary. Rosemary is another of those great Italian herbs, and you can use it 2 ways. You can either add the whole sprig or just take the leaves and chop it very, very, very finely. I normally take the leaves and chop it finely, very, very fine, as fine as you can, and then add it to whatever I'm cooking. If it's like a bechamel sauce or anything that I'm cooking. And the reason for that is I see a lot of celebrity chefs using rosemary as a whole, sort of the whole sprig, and then tossing everything together after it's cooked, so you get all the leaves throughout the food. And I find rosemary leaves really difficult to eat because they're very hard. It's not like other herbs that kind of wilt and become soft and you can actually chew them and eat them. Rosemary leaves stay hard and whole, and I just find them really difficult to eat and not very pleasant to eat. So what I like to do is I take the leaves off and then I chop it very, 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 very fine, as fine as you can, and then I add it to the food and just leave it there, and then you have the flavor of the rosemary without having to have these horrible hard leaves, almost like pine needles, in your mouth. The other herb that I like to use for cooking is sage. And sage it's a great earthy herb, normally used for pork, but I like to use it for a lot of things, sometimes even vegetarian meals. And again, it's one of those leaves that I don't like to put whole, because although it wilts, you don't really want to, when you have a mouthful, you don't really want to have a whole sage leaf and have that flavor, you know, inside of your mouth. So what I like to do, I like to chop it like the same I do with rosemary, and then add into the food, and that way you have the flavor of the sage without having that whole leaf in your mouth. So the way I like to use herbs in general, it's really to match at least 3 herbs together for whatever cooking I'm doing. So I can choose, for example, coriander with parsley and a little bit of chives, or some dill with some parsley and some basil, for example. And I find that when you use 3 types of herbs, it really gives a unique flavor to the meal. Really, it gives it a more rounded, more full flavor to your salad or to whatever you're doing. I very rarely use one herb unless it's something very specific, like for example a caprese salad, taking the example before of the basil. But even though sometimes, rather than do a caprese where you have the slices of tomatoes and cheese sort of layered, I just chop it all in bite-sized pieces, and then you put the basil, and I can put some parsley as well, for example. So I really rarely use one type of herb. I normally like to use 3 types of herb together in one single dish. The other way that I use herb, and for example, and this is something that I do quite a lot, and people seem to like it. When I do meatballs, one of the recipes that I got for meatballs is I combine sage, rosemary, and dill for the meat. So I add all the spices and seasoning to the meat, chop these 3 herbs together and add it to the mix, and then make meatballs. And every time I do that, I always get people asking me, what did you put? You know, what season did you add? Because you get in the background a sort of fresh flavor, but you kind of can't really put into words or pinpoint what it is. It just adds to the flavor without having without overpowering or without taking away the flavor of the spices that you need in the meatballs. So that's a good way that I use herbs for hot food, especially dill, that has been really put, like I said, only to be used almost in potato salads and salmon. So this is how I use herbs, and I find that using it this way, I really don't have to add that much fat or into the cooking that I do. And sometimes, well, I would say 90% of the time, I really remove a lot of the fat from meats, and the combination of the spices and the herbs and other things that you add to meat don't really need that fatness. You can leave a little bit because it makes the meat moist and juicy and all that sort of thing. But just leave what's necessary for that, and not because you need it for flavor. And cooking this way not only makes it healthier, but it makes it more flavorsome, and it controls the calorie. And I'm all for controlling calories and not putting on weight because of food, because I love to eat a lot. So the more that I can eat and the less calories that I can put in, especially from fat, the better. So it makes a healthier way to add flavors to your meal. And I really hope this video has given you some more info and help you in choosing your herbs and how to use herbs, and just be inspired and go out and take a few herbs, chop them off, put them in your food, and then slowly you'll be choosing which are your favorites and how to combine and what's your favorite flavor to add more or to add less. It's just, cooking is about experimenting. Cooking is about, you know, just doing food that you like to eat, that you like your flavors, and there's nothing set in stones saying that this has to be used for this or that has to be used for that. It's really what you like. Sometimes I use things and I combine flavors that people say, like, you can't combine this with that. Well, I like it, and that's it. And if I like it, I found that other people like it too, and that's how I cook. And I guess that's what makes my cooking slightly different and quite unique in comparison to perhaps other professional cooks and other chefs. But I really hope you take some info and helps you in your cooking, and then go out and get some herbs and start to experiment. If you want to see more videos like this one or some of my video recipes, then you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get notified every time I do a new video. And I'll see you later this week with another video recipe, so remember to check that out, and I'll see you next time then. Bye.